Hello, everybody. Welcome back to episode number 2 here in the Happy Space Prison. We're right where we left off in the last episode, and the first thing we want to focus on is taking care of skill points. So we haven't gotten any skill points for our first 3 duplicants quite yet. We're about halfway there. They get skill points, or they get experience towards skill points from doing all kinds of things, just digging, working, researching, all the things that they do. They slowly build up XP, and then they gain skill points. Nicola, however, since we just brought him in, starts off with 1 skill point, which is why it's nice to wait for that duplicate for one that you're trying to skill up pretty quickly, because you automatically start off with 1 skill point, and then you can build up to the second one fairly quickly. So Nicola is going to be our first rancher, so we're going to put him into improved farming. Now, if you remember, the heart means that they have an affinity for that skill, which means that while it costs 1 more morale for that skill, they also gain a morale for being trained in a skill that they have interest in. So it costs us nothing to do that, morale-wise. I am going to give him a hat to match his new skill, just so visually we can see he's our farmer. So now we can allow him to just go ahead and do things. Another thing I noticed is that this ration box, I didn't quite get enough carbon dioxide in here. So it's sometimes falling out of sterile atmosphere. So what I want to do to fix that is I'm going to put a door right over here on this side of our room. And I'm just going to dig a couple holes here and across here. There's a little bit of carbon dioxide here that'll work its way over and drop in. And when they breathe, it'll work that way down here and it'll slowly fill this room up. We just need to get it so the pressures in there is high enough. Basically what's happening is, if we look on this one, we can see it a little better. If you watch, this carbon dioxide goes back and forth. Down here, there's enough carbon dioxide to fill up these tiles, but up here, there's only a little bit of carbon dioxide, so it keeps switching places with the oxygen. And so right now, this says sterile atmosphere because this tile has carbon dioxide. When it switches and this tile is oxygen, that this ration box is no longer in a sterile atmosphere. So just something to watch out for. We've got to make sure we have enough carbon dioxide in there. Once we dig this out, that carbon dioxide will work its way down. It'll fill in there and we'll be fine. Also, duplicants breathing will just slowly add more to it. So it's just something I want to have extra airflow to get to now rather than deal with it later when I actually have food in there that's going to spoil. The next thing we want to do is just check on our researches. We already queued them up, but I just want to see where we're at with it. Down here, we're working on this research here so that we can get to the advanced research, which is going to let us place down our supercomputer. That's our main goal for right now. What we need to do is get to the ability where under our research, we can do the research at the top for our critter ranching. So we need to have a grooming station so that we can tame critters. We need to have critter feeders so that we can feed them. The drop off and pickup points will allow us to set up ways to move them around. We also will get a fish feeder, which will allow us to do feeding a fish when we get into the biomes where we can find them. Incubator will allow us to do some automation early on with our eggs. And I believe that's all we need. We're going to have to research this tile as well, but this doesn't really give us anything that we need at the moment. So that's fine. We're going to just get to this point. We're going to get those things, and that'll allow us to set up our first ranches. As we dig out and explore these tiles that say buried object, some of those are going to be hatches. And our goal is we want to have a spot where we can grab them, move them into a ranch right away so that we have the hatches all controlled and they can start being tamed, because as soon as they're tamed and we feed them, they'll start giving us more eggs, and we can take those eggs and turn them into even more hatches and get to a point where we have enough hatches that we have an overpopulation and we can turn them into calories of meat for our duplicants to eat. So we're going to finish the research and then we'll get started on digging out up here to build our ranches. It took us approximately another cycle and a half to get the research done. We got our supercomputer research done and we got the first stage of our research up here done. But now we need to get to the point where we are doing the advanced research. Nisbet has gotten the skill point she needs for that, so we're going to assign that. So we have to go into our skills. In order to use the supercomputer, she needs to have advanced research. So all we're going to do is enable that, give her a hat, and now she'll be able to continue on doing the research with the supercomputer. While she's been working on that, I've had my other duplicates working down here to dig out a larger pit down at the bottom. I don't like to dig out big areas unless I'm going to be using them. But the reason I'm doing this is because I want to collect the water together, with the exception of our initial water pit, so that it's all in one spot. And I've decided I want to use this area over here for our ranches. So I'm digging out an area here, and I left it so that this area is flat, so that once I have the space, I can just dig in here, let this water drain out, and then we'll work our way up to here, let this water drain into this pit as well, and we'll have a nice big water pit at the bottom of the map. It also allowed our carbon dioxide to drop down a little bit farther to create a big carbon pit. So eventually that's where we'll put our final carbon sink, our carbon skimmer that will get rid of the carbon dioxide in our map. I'm also kind of being conscious while I'm digging here that there are some buried objects. I want to make sure where it's possible. I don't want to unearth a hatch where it's going to fall into water, because I want to try to save as many of them as I possibly can. The more hatches we have to start our breeding process, the faster we're going to get to a point where we have ones that we can turn into food. And food is a important thing early game. We only start with so many calories, so we want to get to a point where we have a stable food source quickly. Fortunately, in this map, we have lots and lots of muckroot around, both in the ones that are growing as well as the ones that are buried underground. So as we're expanding, we'll get more food and we'll be able to extend that time a bit longer. And worst case scenario, if we really have to, we can put down a microbe musher and use some of our dirt and water to create some food out of mush that it's not ideal, but it will help us to make it through if we need to. Looks like we got another skill point assigned for Quinn. Quinn is our digger, and I'm going to put him into hard digging right away. That way we can expand in some of the spots where there are hard tiles that we want to get rid of pretty quickly. So with this ladder here, I can now dig down 2 blocks and remove another layer. I'm also going to put another row of ladders 4 blocks down across. And that's going to allow us to dig both up and then down to get the last of these. That should give us a pretty big space here for water. And once we have all of that dug out, I'm going to release this water tank and this one down into here, and we'll finish out our research while we're doing that. Back just a little quicker than I expected. I forgot that a printing pod for Cycle 6 is coming out, so we're going to pause the game so we can take a look at that together and see what we want to do here. So once again, we have a care package, and then we have 3 duplicates this time. So let's go through and take a look at them. Bert has pacifist, which means he can't do attacking. Not a big problem. We have plenty of other duplicates that would be able to handle any attacking errands that we'd need to do on the rare occasion that we need to have our dupes manually attack critters. Early bird's also nice, and the extra construction is nice, so he's a possibility. On the far end here with Abe, we have nyctophobic and gastrophobia. Not being able to do cooking is not a problem for me. I can assign other duplicates as my cooks. But I don't really like nyctophobic. It's kind of a pain to deal with. You have to set up a bedroom with light for him to sleep. And there's plenty of ways to do it, and it's not a big problem. But his gains are not enough to make me want to do it. Getting plumbing is not something I need right now, and I can always skill somebody into that later when I do. So let's look at Otto. Otto has increased ranching, which is really good. I could put him in as a second critter rancher, which would be really useful. The hard digging is kind of nice. I don't need to use skill points to get into hard digging. He will start out with that. And bottomless stomach, I think I said this before, but bottomless stomach is typically not something I want to use. But in a playthrough like that we're doing now, where we have to consume a lot of calories, if I can get past the fact that he's going to be consuming 50% more calories in the early game, when we get to the point where we're trying to consume 400,000 calories before cycle 100, that's actually an asset for me. So I think I'm going to bring Otto in. We'll do that. Oh, I forgot to make a new bed and a new mess table when I brought in my last. Oh, I did have the extra mess table. So we're actually going to put in another table We're going to put in another cot so that we're ready for a duplicate after Otto. But we need to have, we want to kind of stay ahead of that. So when we're bringing in a duplicate, they already have a place to sleep and a place to eat. And the bathrooms will be fine because, like I said, we can handle up to 8 with our current schedule system. So Otto is currently dropped in on the default schedule. We want to find him a home. I want him working right away, so we're going to put him right on the schedule 4. That way we're not wasting time while he sleeps at the very beginning. So he's going to join Nicola on schedule 4. We'll probably change that once we get them to critter ranching and swap them out because, you know, I'm going to do it right now. I'm going to put him on cycle 3 and move Quinn to cycle 4. And the reason for that is that Nicola is going to be a critter rancher and so is Otto. And I want them on separate schedules. That way I can cover the entire 24-hour time cycle having a critter rancher active. So we can welcome our new duplicate. He's going to get settled in. We need to select skill points. So under his skill points, we're going to go immediately into the improved farming. And then we'll get him into critter ranching once we get another skill point. Meemaw also got her skill point. And I don't really need more digging because I have a couple of hard diggers now. So we can go with one of her skills that she has an affinity for. So we can either do improved construction or improved carrying. I do want to get the construction because eventually I want to have demolition. But I think right now having her be able to carry more is a much better thing. So let's give her a carrying hat. Otto can have his farming hat, so we know that that's one of our future ranchers, and then we're good to go. So all they need to do is build out the beds and stuff for them, and he's ready to move on in. And what are we? Oh, we're just missing water for our supercomputer, and then Nisbet will be able to continue on with her research. She's on break right now anyway, so it's not a problem. We've gotten our entire pit dug out, and just a real quick note on that. When I'm expanding stuff out, I'm really putting a lot of conscious decision into what I'm expanding. A big common mistake I see early on is people want to clear out their entire starting biome right away. And there's 2 reasons not to do that. One is that the bigger the area you have, the more space you need to put more oxygen into, which makes it so your oxygen can't compress as well. So when you have a really big area, it takes you longer to fill that room with oxygen, and then you'll end up with spotty patches of oxygen throughout your main base. Right now, I'm pretty well solidly distributed with oxygen here. Lower areas, the oxygen isn't making it there, but that's okay. We're going to fix that pretty soon. The other thing is that when you start out, you have this protective layer of temperature because of all this thermal mass in the blocks around you. As you take it out and the gases go up and make contact, heat slowly leaches in. So leaving as much as you can around you while you're working and only clearing out when you actually have something to build in that area is a good idea, because you don't want to end up having that heat come in and cook your base out, especially if you're doing a playthrough where you're going to be planting crops right away, because crops are really sensitive to heat. That being said, I dug this area out for 2 reasons. One, I wanted to move the water, but also I need to get skill points up for our ranchers so that we can get into ranching right away. We've gotten Nicola and Otto about halfway. Well, Nicola more than Otto because Otto's newer, but towards the ranching skill point that they need in order to be able to move critters around. So when we finish our research, we'll be pretty close to actually having a critter rancher to use the buildings that we're building. Okay, enough chatting. Let's crack open our water tank here and spill this down into our tank. The quickest way to do it is to just let it flow past. It will disable some buildings temporarily, but it's a lot better than pumping the water out and dealing with that. Doesn't use electricity, just uses gravity. The water will flow where we want it to. So we're going to let this one empty out completely, and we'll get that water flowing down here into our main tank. And then over here, I'm going to dig this tile so we can jump up. We'll dig these 2 tiles so we can jump up, and we'll just keep working our way up to the top of this tank first. And then we'll slowly work our way down here to let all of that water out. I'm just going up to the top because there is some buried objects along this wall, and I want to make sure those are not hatches before I let the water flood past. I don't want to lose any hatches to drowning early on. One hatch right now would turn into meat that we could eat, but if we can get it into a ranch, it will greatly increase the amount of hatches we have to start with, which will allow us to get our ranching up much, much faster. Okay, so we just finished out our skills for that. There is one other thing that I'm going to want early game here for our hatching, and that is, where exactly is that item? It's going to be in solid materials. There it is. We want to have the automatic dispenser. We're going to use that to do some early game kind of tricky automation to handle eggs in our ranches, and so we're going to get that going. Eventually we'll get auto sweepers and conveyor loaders and conveyor chutes, and we can automate it fully, but early game we can use our duplicates to automate the eggs to keep them out of our ranches. But we'll show you that once we get to it. We're going to let that research continue. We're going to keep digging up here to let all of this water flow out, and then we will start building out some ranches over here, and hopefully by the time we finish all that, we will have a critter rancher that can start moving hatches around. I've only so far discovered the one down here, but as we dig out, we're going to definitely get more. There's lots of them buried here inside our starting biome. We did have one hatch that we found while digging out this area to get the water to move down, but with some creative planning of where to dig, we were able to keep him out of the water so that he's not drowning, and we'll be able to put him into our ranches once we get set up. Right now we have another printing pod decision to make. This is going to be an interesting one. Nyctophobic, I'm going to ignore this one. I don't want that one. I don't really like irritable bow. Decreased construction would be okay, but I'm not super happy with it. It is kind of annoying when it's done. It's easily overcome by skilling them up in construction and getting rid of that debuff, but I don't really like doing that. The pipsqueak, however, is really interesting. Pipsqueaks are critters that we don't have access to right yet. In order to get them, I think we may actually need to get them from the care package in the base game. Not positive on that, but what they are critters that we are able to use to plant wild crops. They'll pick up a seed and they'll plant it. So a pip is something that I really want. I'm going to bring this one in, and we'll keep him around just for a little bit, get a ranch set up for him so that we can get things going with him. We'll have to look and see about food sources, because I think they're going to need a thimbleweed, because I don't think we'll have arbor trees in order to feed them. So we may need to use thimbleweed in order to keep them fed, but they're a good thing to get set up with a ranch just to keep them to have whenever we need to use them. They're not the best food source, because compared to hatches, they give about half the amount of food, and they take, just the same amount of work, but they will be good for when we want to plant. Speaking of that, it moves us into the next thing we want to do. Normally when I am digging out this main shaft, I use all ladders, so I have a lot of airflow, but we are going to want to get another room buff coming pretty soon, and that is our nature reserve. I wasn't really worried about it, because by the time we get to pips, normally I would have ways to set up to replace natural tiles, but because we have a pip now, once he's grown, we can plant crops in natural tiles to get a wild nature reserve. If we can get it set up so that we can build a nature reserve right outside the bedroom and bathroom area, we'll be able to get the nature reserve bonus, which is a really huge 6 morale points that will really help us with our morale going into the mid game. So while I'm digging this area out, because I want to dig this section here for ranching, I'm going to be conscious of that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to dig like this, and I'm going to dig like this, and I'm deliberately going to leave this spot that I would normally make a ladder tile be a natural tile. We'll do the same here, coming down, and we'll do one here. That'll give us 1, 2, and 3. For a nature reserve, we need to do a room that is maximum size 120 with 4 wild plants. So let's go up one more. We'll do 4 more ladders, And then this tile here, which I would normally turn into a ladder, we'll leave open and as a natural tile. So then we'll have 1, 2, 3, and 4. We'll be able to encase that as a room, and we'll make it so that we can use our pip to plant plants in there and get a nature reserve set up for us to get that bonus from morale. So that's good for there. And then over here, what we're going to do, I don't want to dig into this area yet. Still not equipped to handle the polluted oxygen. We will be soon, but not yet. So I'm just going to dig over this way to get this section dug out, and then we'll just work our way down and dig through the rest of this while we're finishing up that last little bit of research that we need. Research we had is done, so I want to queue up some more because there's some things we want to get going into. Very next thing I want to do is work on our getting the research ready for our proper way of handling carbon. So we're going to want to get to the carbon skimmer, which is this one. So we're going to have to research all the way across to here. And then after that, we'll work on some things up here under liquids in order to manage it so that we can set up a loop that will handle carbon going forward. We're still digging out some things here. We're going to keep digging from the top down. We found another hatch in the process. So that's the more we find of them, the better. We can get started filling up our ranches right away. I'm going to build 3 ranches out in this area. So we're going to have 1 here, 1 here, and 1 here. So I'm going to work my way down and dig out before I start building them. And the reason I'm doing that is because I want all the debris gone, and I don't want to have to sweep it later. The reason is because our hatches will eat the stuff on the ground, and I don't want them eating the stuff on the ground. I want them eating the food that I'm going to give them. So we're going to let them continue to dig out here before we get too far, and then we'll start building our ranches from the top down. And then by the time we have them in, we will be ready to actually assign a critter rancher, which means we'll be able to move the hatches into our first ranch and start taming. So let's queue up the next batch of digging here so that we can keep working our way down, and then I'll start building out a proper hatch ranch. Area is all dug out, and we've started construction. And you can see, because we built from the top down, almost all the debris has dropped all the way down to this bottom layer. So we don't have to worry about sweeping it. It can just sit there until the point where we're ready to handle all of that and get it finished up. I'm just getting the frames for these rooms set up, and we're going to build the first one up here together so you can see how this is going to work, and then I'll just build them all later on. So what we're first going to need is a grooming station in the room, and then we're going to need a critter feeder. We're going to also want to put in a storage bin so that we can bring a supply of food in for that critter feeder, so that their duplicates don't have to keep running back and forth to fill the small amount for the critter feeder. They'll have a large supply right next door, and eventually our automation will keep the critter feeder full. Other thing that we need is to have a place where we can drop off our critters. So basically, once we set up a hatchery, we want to make it so that critters will be dropped off into this room when we get them. So we're going to put that there. The next thing that we're going to build after that is an old trick to make it so that this room, while it is big enough for the critters, is small enough where the area where the hatches are actually going to be. And so to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to put in a door here. We're going to put a block above it. That's going to make it so hatches can sit in this room. They won't be able to go past either of these doors, and this will be too tall for them to go out, but this room will connect to the area behind it, and we'll have some empty space in here. We can put some other things in there later, but for now, we just want the room to be the maximum size. And if you look at the stables can be at a minimum 12 and a maximum 96. And we want them the maximum size because critters need space in order to be happy. And we'll get into how the critter mechanics work once we have some critters in place. But for now, you just want to know that the stable, you want it to be 96 tiles. That is your goal. So when they build this out, and then we come down here and we finish these here, I put some ladders in as support so they can get up and finish this roof. And then we build out tiles that go like this. We can actually, for this one, we can leave that natural tile because if we were to take this room and look at it, it is 100 tiles in space. We subtract the 3 for this door and this one, it makes us to 97, which means we need 1 more tile still in this room. So to demonstrate down here, when we build it in for this room, what we're going to do is we're actually going to build another tile back in there. And then we can just take this here, copy it, and paste it so that we can build it again for both of these rooms. And now we can build this room in. I am not building out the floor here until we get to the point where we have these dug out, because I want to make sure that we don't get any debris in the room. But then we'll be finished and we'll have all 3 ranches built up. So when they finish this room, it's going to seal it off. This room will be the right size. Right now it says it's 1,000 tiles because it's connecting to the main room. But once this is built, this room will become 96 tiles exactly. We'll have all that space for the critters to see as their environment. But they'll be confined to these 5 tiles across the floor where they can walk. That way, when our critter ranchers come in to groom them and to feed them, we don't have to wait for hatches to run back and forth from long distances. It'll just speed things up and make things a little bit more efficient. As far as that goes, we just now got to the point where Nicola is able to get a skill point, which means we can make him our very first critter rancher, which gives him a new hat. And it also means if we look for our hatches, which we have several all over the place, here's one here. I want to move him into our ranch up here. Nicola will be able to do that because he now has the skill point required to do it. Also, I want to go to priorities and go to Nicola and make sure we did already set up his ranching as his highest priority. And we're going to do the same setup for Otto, because soon he'll be a critter rancher. I want him to have the exact same priorities. So, Nicholas should be heading down here to grab our hatch as soon as he possibly can and take him up and put him inside of our stable here. If we look at our room overlay, we now have a stable that is 96 tiles. That enables that grooming station to be used, and our critter ranchers can start taming our hatches by grooming them at the grooming station. For their food, we're going to go to hatches. In the long term, I want to set them up with sedimentary rock. I don't think I have any sedimentary rock just yet. I have 400 kilograms, so let's set it for that. And what we're going to have to do is get out to get sedimentary rock from other areas. And the reason we want sedimentary rock rather than other food for our hatches is because our sedimentary rock will make it so that our hatches turn into stone hatches, which is the ideal ones that we're going to use later. They eat stone types and they give us coal, and it all works out for us. So let's pause the game. I have a few things we need to handle real quick. But first I want to look at our materials. So when we go to the materials overlay, I already have it set for minerals, so you can see this shows us all the different rock types that are around the map. And if you look and see these blue, those are patches of sedimentary rock that we have access to. They're primarily inside these slime biomes. So conveniently, the research we just did for the carbon skimmer also gives us the deodorizer, which means that when we crack into these, we can put a deodorizer down and prevent that polluted oxygen from becoming a problem. So in our next episode, we're going to be focusing on getting out here to collect some of the sedimentary rock so that we can get it in here to feed our hatches. We're also going to work on getting all of our hatches brought over and placed into these different stables. The idea is if we can get all 3 of these filled up, we'll be able to provide a stable food source for our colony very soon, where we're going to have lots and lots of meat, which means we'll have no trouble hitting the carnivore achievement. Before we leave, let's just take a look. I want to set up the next research into our water sieve so we can finish off that carbon skimmer setup next episode. And let's check out our printable, see if there's anything in here worth bringing. As far as Jean goes, she's a mouth breather. I don't particularly like mouth breathers. They use a lot more air when oxygen is always a problem. That's why the game is called Oxygen Not Included. So it's not something I like to take. And the super duper hard digging is not something I need right now. So she's out. Joshua has some good positive traits. He has some decreased construction, which isn't too bad of an idea. So he's a possibility. Gossman has plant murderer, which is decreased agriculture, which is not a problem because we could just put them into a different field. And then we have the shine bug eggs. As far as this goes, I don't think I want to bring on another duplicate right now. We already have 5. I only have enough oxygen being produced to support the 5. I need to do some work with that. Our food is very low, and we don't have a need for a duplicate right now. We have enough people to do the work that we have, and so I think we're going to not bring in a duplicate at all. And shine bug eggs don't really do much for me, but they're not going to hurt me, so I'll take those. And that will be our printing pod decision for this time. When we come back in our next episode, we'll work on getting these ranches finished, getting more towards some automation in the early game for the eggs to handle them, and I'll explain to you why that's important. And we'll get our first food source set up using meat. We're also going to probably have to explore to get some more hatches out of the buried objects, but we'll also need to do that anyway just to get to some muckroot because we're running low on calories, and pretty soon that's going to become an issue for us. But one that's easily solvable. As you can see, there's plenty of food around the map. We just have to get out there and collect it. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.